Hello, lovely people. It's Monday. It's the last day of June. Now, you won't see this probably until the weekend, but I will wish any Canadians happy Canada Day, even if it will be belated by the time you see this. I had today off and I am working tomorrow. Yes, working on Canada Day, but I think it's just a 10 till 3, so it's not too long. I don't have anything Canada Day themed to wear to work. I should have thought about that, shouldn't I? Anyway, because I had the whole day free, I had a very relaxing morning doing some reading on the couch. And I will talk about that book later on because I cannot remember what the author's name is right now. It's a little bit depressing because it's set in the East End of London. Which is, interesting, shall we say. However, I did have a little play this afternoon in my sewing room. Now, I didn't film what I was doing. I won't show you my hand, but unfortunately, I was making myself a smoothie at lunchtime. And I reached over for the black sort of plunger thing that you use on the Vitamix to push the frozen fruit down. And I caught my hand on a razor blade. I have a razor blade taped to a pencil for slashing sourdough bread. I do not make sourdough bread very often, believe me. Every couple of years I get excited about it and then I forget about it again. However, I have it taped to the side of the kitchen cupboard and I managed to slash my knuckle on it and it bled like a crazy thing. So I've got a massive band-aid on it right now and you can see all the blood through it. So yeah, I didn't want to be filming my hands today. In fact, I'll do my best to keep it out of shot. I may have already waved my hands around and forgotten about it already, knowing me. But anyway, I made something from the purple fabric. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I think it was, I made some arty-farty purple fabric out of scraps and tulle and free motion quilting, and these 3 little bits are all I have left now. But they will work for maybe some pins or a pendant or something like that. So today I made a little jar cozy. Now, in my last vlog that I literally just published at 1 o'clock this morning, vlog number 103, I had some Tim Hortons jars from instant coffee. How appropriate for Canada Day is this? Anyway, I made my friend a patchwork cover for it, thinking she could probably use it for pens or tools in her sewing room or whatever she likes, really. And so with the piece of purple fabric that I had left over, which was about half of it, I made another Tim Hortons jar cozy, probably for myself this time, although it may end up being a gift because it's very pretty. So what I did with this one, it was a bit of a wing it thing, of course. I just wrapped it around the jar, figured out how big it needed to be with 1/2-inch seam allowances. And before I sewed the side seam, I actually put binding on it. I mean, yes, this is me here. Don't usually like binding, but I wanted a nice neat top to it. So I've got binding on the top. I bound the inside seam. And then from the scrap that was left from cutting that piece, it's a very good band-aid cover as well because you can't see it while it's on my hand. From the piece that was left, I managed to get the perfect size of base. And I freehanded the circle. And I even bound that seam allowance as well. But you won't be looking at that because that's the messiest part. Thankfully, it's dark down there. You can't see it. So I think that's really pretty. I could keep on making these because these are just so fun and interesting. The other thing I did today, because the basket and the patchwork stuff I just made are for a friend. I made a little card to go with it. Hopefully my gel pen has dried already. So I made a little patchwork card. I bought these blank, what are they called? Mixed media cards, Strathmore mixed media cards. I always have a box of these in the house. It's just a blank set of cards with matching envelopes, and I'm tipping them everywhere. So I used some double-sided sticky tape to attach these little squares left over from yesterday's project, and then just zigzagged over the raw edges and then put happy homemaking on there and a little message inside. So that was fun. I have plans to make ramen for dinner, and it's going to be fancy ramen because it's got roasted vegetables in the stock, and I'm going to have to start early. So I think that's what I'm going to be doing next. So I'll talk to you again later in the week.
This might actually be a good year for apricots. So much fruit that we had to thin it. We had absolutely nothing last year. Looking forward to some nice ripe apricots in July, I think, maybe this month. Strawberries and tomatoes. I think that's a couple of cucumbers. Hopefully we'll get some off them this year. Oh, I actually see a little green tomato there. Fabulous. Honeysuckle. Oregano or oregano, depending where you live. Volunteer viola, one of my favourite flowers. My beautiful walnut tree, the main feature of the backyard. The old dead cherry, which has become my teapot tree. I was hoping the birds were going to nest in those this year. I don't think they did though. Another look at that wasp's nest. They are super busy up there. I hope you can see that. I can't see it very well on my screen because the sun is shining on my phone. Beautiful blue sky today. It's gonna be a hot one again. These flowers, and I can't tell you what they're called, some sort of lily I guess, did so well this year. They're nearly as tall as me. I think these are called Adam's Needle. They do their own thing every year with absolutely no input from us. My gorgeous maple tree, the feature of the front yard and of the whole neighbourhood. I think it's the biggest tree around here. This little bed out the front definitely needs weeding again, but I do love my hostas. The lawn's still looking pretty green, which is nice. We try not to overwater in the summer because it gets expensive, and also we have water restrictions. But it is nice to try and keep things alive. This is my favourite breakfast at the moment. I make myself a muesli using bran flakes, oats, dried fruit like raisins and cranberries, and nuts like walnuts and pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds. And then I just add some Kirkland soy milk because it tastes good, and a sliced banana, and it's quick and easy and nutritious and cold, which is very important in the summer. This is the jar that I mix it up in. This is one of the books I got out from the library this week. It's from 2018 and it's called Sketchbook Explorations by Shelley Rhodes. And it's very inspiring. My favourite colour on the inside. So it's all about keeping a sketchbook for your inspiration and your textile art. I've always considered myself a person who can't draw or paint to save my life. But you know what? I can sketch out ideas that I have in my head. And I can make marks on paper with fun art materials. She has some great ideas in here. Let's do a quick flick. So it got me thinking. She was talking about having a sketchbook and taking it out with you wherever you go, and different ways of either making a sketchbook or building one, and also making things to make marks on paper with. Like she has brushes made from sticks and feathers, and she has pens made from a soda can bent around a stick. Very interesting. And this is all about found items on this page. If you're on holiday or out and about, you might collect things. I love it. I love all the colours. I love all the ideas. Oh, there's the pens she made with the cola can. So because I read this, and I'm going to be looking at it quite a few times, I have bought Mr. Stitches and myself a little sketchbook each. I got 2 of these yesterday at work. These are from Michael's. They were, I think, $4.99, $5.99. Anyway, not a lot of money. Of course, if you use a coupon, that's even better. The paper is quite heavy for a sketchbook, so that's nice. But what I've also done is I've cut out a couple of bits of glossy paper from something I had downstairs in my sewing room, so that it can be slipped between the pages so you don't have soak through if you're using something like paint or markers. So I've got that ready. I love this colour. So what I've done is I've made a little heap of art supplies on the coffee table now. I've got my lovely set of gel pens there, all 100 of them. And in this basket that I made a while back, I have this set of double-ended watercolour brush pens. This is also from Michael's. Used my staff discount on that. I have this tiny Winsor & Newton watercolour set, which I've had for about 20 years. And I haven't used it enough to finish the paints that it came with yet. I don't know if I can open it with one hand. Probably not. But it comes with a lid that turns into a palette and a teeny tiny brush. You'll have to take my word for it. I've also got a Staedtler graphite pencil kit. I have a Ticonderoga coloured pencil set, which I think I've had since the boys were small. I have a mini stapler that was just hanging around downstairs, and I thought that would be fun. It's got green staples in, and it might come in useful for attaching things into my book. A proper eraser, but also the fun erasers that I got from Michael's a while back that look like mini donuts. So fun. A handful of paintbrushes in case the one in the watercolour set isn't good enough. And a billion pencil crayons from when the kids were small. Not a very sexy bag, it's an old Ziploc, which is looking really greyed out now. But yeah, we have all of these crayons from way back then. The only thing I couldn't find was a sharpener. I know I have a pencil sharpener somewhere, but I don't know where it is. Looking forward to hopefully doing a page a day in my little sketchbook. Just for fun, just for myself, just to play.
Well, sitting down in my sewing room, I can see it's got really windy outside since I did a little bit of filming out in the garden this morning. I think it's supposed to get over 30 today, but I'm not sure what it'll end up being. Yesterday, I think it got to 38. So I had a good day yesterday. It was Canada Day, and I had to go to work. I know I shouldn't say I had to go to work. I had a shift. And the awesome thing is that even though it was a public holiday, we still got a truck and a whole bunch of deliveries. And most of the staff were on. And I love it when that happens because it's so dynamic when there's so many people on. There's lots of people buzzing around. There's lots of people to help customers. And yeah, it just feels so much more interesting than when there's only like 2 people on the floor and you're struggling to get everything done. But you know, head office dictates the hours, so guess they do what they can. But yesterday was a lot of fun and I really enjoyed it. And I came home and I made what I thought was a really good dinner because it had all the right components, right? It had the black bean soup and the cornbread and the salad. And then on the way home, I had bought a little bit of ice cream because it was kind of a special occasion. I like the Soy Delicious one. And so yeah, felt like I had done my familial duty yesterday and made sure the family were well fed. So my hand is a lot better. I can show it to you now because it's not disgustingly messy. You can see where the razor blade caught me across the knuckle there. Yeah. At work yesterday, it did split open at one point and I had to put a Band-Aid back on it. But no, it's nicely healed now. It still looks a bit red, but it's not bleeding. Obviously, if I was to really catch it hard on something, it might open up again. So I've just got to be sensible about it. I made a to-do list this morning and I've crossed nearly everything off it. So I feel very, very accomplished. Got 2 loads of laundry hanging outside on the line. I made some cookies so that we can put some of the leftover ice cream from last night in between cookies and make ice cream sandwiches. Can't wait for that. Yeah, and I did a few other things. I did my daily sketchbook page, which I mentioned in the clip I'll probably have put in before this. Before this or before this? I can never remember. And now I'm in my sewing room. I wanted to just tackle this outstanding project. I have a stack of strip-pieced squares here, or blocks. A few months ago now since I started this project. I was cutting 10-inch squares of very lightweight fusible interfacing, similar to this. This is the new lot I bought because I ran out and I couldn't do anything with it till I had more. This is, what's it called? Pellon Fusible Sheer Weight Ultra Lightweight Interfacing. It looks like it's 906F. It's non-woven, so it's a lot cheaper than the woven. It's very lightweight. And what I did is I cut my 10-inch squares and then I just did the stitch and flip method where you start with a strip down the middle, 2 strips really, right sides together. You sew a seam, flip it, iron it, sew another one, flip it, iron it. You have to be really careful when you're doing this method not to catch your iron on the sticky stuff on the interfacing, which is fine once you get going. It's the first pressing part right in the middle there where you're most likely to get sticky stuff on your iron. And I know that they are super ugly and super scrappy because I did not worry about fabrics going together. I didn't worry about which fabrics I was using. I was just pulling them out of my scrap bag and using them up. And I did at the time actually get to the bottom of my scrap bag. Guess what? I have 2 scrap bags now. I'll show you them in a minute. So the original plan was to sew them together in blocks of 4, make cushion covers. But now I'm thinking I don't really want these as cushion covers in my living room. My living room already has quite a lot of colour in it, as you can probably imagine. It's got crochet blankets, it's got quilts on the wall, got quilt on the coffee table even. And yeah, I'm thinking maybe that these need to be made into something else. I could make a quilt. Yeah, I'm not really super into making quilts these days, but I do every now and again put one together. Speaking of which, the one I made for my niece out of her baby's old onesies was very well received. She loved it. So I'm very pleased about that. She made a joke that her friend wanted one. I know she was joking. And I replied, okay, non-family members get charged £500 for one of those quilts. And she just laughed. She didn't really mean that I should make her one. Because, yeah, I'm not going to make another one of those unless it's for my niece. Or my nephew, if he finally settles down and has kids of his own. But he hasn't yet. So, and my kids, certainly no sign of my kids having any of kids of their own either. So I'm not going to be a grandmother anytime soon. And that's fine. Back to the squares. I think I have 16 of them because I had made 4 sets of 4, kind of, for the 4 cushions in the living room. So I was trying to decide whether to do a plain back so that I could just get them done. But then that would mean using big chunks of fabric that I have in the stash that I might want to keep for something else. A lot of my quilt cotton stash is smaller pieces, a lot of scraps, a lot of small pieces, great for making bags and things, but not really for backing cushion covers or quilts. So I might lay these out on the floor and just see what they look like as a quilt. Or I might consider making tote bags out of them. That just came to me. 10-inch squares are pretty huge. That'll finish up, 9.5 inches square once the seams are done. So if I had 16 squares and I arrange them 4 by 4, then 4 9s, 36, 4 halves, 2, 38 inches. 38 inches square is pretty small, unless it was a baby quilt. So I will have a play. And I think what I'm leaning towards at the moment is just to hang on to these for now and go through the rest of the scraps and make more blocks. I'll show you what I've got here. You'll see the full glory of my messy sewing room behind you. This is one of my scrap bags. I absolutely adore these crocheted baskets. These are awesome to make when you want to use up a ton of scraps. And yeah, stash busting. was the rule of the day. I think I have at least 4 of these anyway. So this one is full. And oh, maybe 5 of them, because I'd forgotten about this one. Hold on a minute. And this one. And the scary thing is that even though it looks like it's contained by this basket, if you tip the stuff out, it looks 10 times bigger because they are well and truly stuffed in there. This one was made with t-shirt fabric. I had bought it bought it over 10 years ago. And it was in the early days of Fabricland, working at Fabricland. And this fabric was on sale for something silly like $3 a meter. I did end up making myself a couple of skirts out of that lime green and the orange, and some pajama pants out of the orange. I know I made something out of the turquoisey one as well. Can't remember what it was. It was very thin though, and making t-shirt yarn out of it and crocheting it was a really good idea because that maximized it. And I think I have none left of that now, so that's good. Just dropped something. I dropped a scrap, I think. Yeah, I'm not going to tip that out to show you what it looks like. So as you can see, those strip piece blocks are really quick to make, and I could probably run up another 16 in a day if I was feeling particularly committed, although there's no time limit. There's really no time limit. So I'm just going to have to make a decision as to what's happening with that. I think that the interfacing I used last time was even thinner than the one I have there. You don't really want it too bulky unless you're going to use that as your main interfacing. But I mean, if I was making a quilt with this, I'd be adding batting. So you don't necessarily need to have something heavy on the back. You just need something to sew onto, and you could sew onto fabric. If you had tons of ugly, cheap fabric from somewhere, say you'd been to the thrift shop and you had some old sheets or something, you could use those as backings for this. And that would be awesome too. Just make sure it's woven and not stretchy, because you don't want stretchy. That's just going to turn out one big mess. All right, time to play. This is what the blocks look like laid out on the floor. I didn't overthink it. I just put them all down, and I put them so that they made a secondary pattern with the stripes. So this is by no means a fixed layout. I do rather like the dramatic effect of all the scraps and the way they play with each other. And when they meet at the intersections, it makes it very interesting. So that would, as I say, would make a pretty small baby quilt, but I may just make a ton more in other colors and then intersperse them. So I'll have to figure out what size I would be going for and how many more blocks I need to make. I've had a little think, and on the basis that, what was I going to say? I knew what I was going to say and I've forgotten it. I've had a little think. I thought at first I might make a single bed size quilt, which would be 6 blocks by 8, because I feel like with this layout you'd want an even number of blocks each way. But that was 48 squares. I didn't know if I wanted to commit to 48 squares. Plus, nobody in this house has a single bed anyway. And I felt like maybe a square would be more usable. It could just be a throw. So if I do a 6x6 quilt, it would work out at about 57 inches square with the 9-inch finish, 9.5-inch finished blocks. And that's 36 squares, and that's manageable because I already have 16 made, so I'd only have to make another 20. And I have the exact place in mind for where it can end up. My middle son's bedroom needs a complete overhaul. It hasn't changed since he was a kid. And feel like if we were to put a small chair in the corner of his room, we could put a throw quilt on it. So in the meantime, while I am making more blocks, I will be encouraging him to have a good old clear out. I already told him the other day he needs to go through his closet and toss out a bunch of stuff that he never wears. And we will see how that works out. Again, no timeline, but another 20 blocks will be quite quick to make. And then I'll just have to figure out what to put on the back. I'd need, let's see, a 60x60 piece of backing fabric. So I'd have to piece quilt cotton. So that would be 1.5 meters. That'd be about 3 meters of fabric. And none of my fabrics is that big, as far as I know. But I'm sure I can easily find something, either at a thrift shop or head off out of town to one of the fabric lands and find something in the clearance department or the bargain centre. That will work. So that's that for now then. Oh. It's mid-afternoon. We're making do with natural light right now because I think I took the plug thing for my ring light upstairs again. I couldn't be bothered to run up and run back down for it. But there's lots of bright sunlight coming in the window right now because it's coming around. I've made a few blocks. I did tip all my scraps on the floor and it's a massive pile. I did have to cut quite a few strips from the scraps I had. Obviously, when you're doing the center strips, you need a fairly long couple of strips to start because they have to go corner to corner. But I have plenty of pieces there to choose from. So my hand is tired now. I have an old injury from when I broke my wrist in 2018 snowboarding. There's a lovely scar right there, and there's a titanium plate in there. And picking up this iron every time I've done a seam gets tiring. I also burnt through at least 6 partial bobbins, which feels really good. It's almost like stash busting, if you know what I mean. Very satisfying. So I'll show you the 8 blocks I've made today. I did time myself making one, and it was just under 10 minutes. So just under 10 minutes per block. Obviously, some are quicker, some are slower. It depends if I have to jump up and cut more fabric for them. My only rule was that I shouldn't repeat the same fabric in one block. So they're very random and very scrappy. And I wouldn't say they clash necessarily because the fabrics aren't all bright. There's only some brights. There's some brights, some lights, some darks, some subtle ones. But yeah, there is no coordination in the fabrics here. So that's the ones I've made today. So now I have 16 from before, plus 8. I have 24 blocks now. I only have 12 more to do. So I think that's going to be that for today. And I will maybe make the rest tomorrow. I don't have to do it all in one session. I could do it in 2 sessions, maybe one in the morning and one in the afternoon tomorrow, because I'm not working tomorrow. For some reason, my schedule got changed. I'm sure I was originally scheduled 3 to 9 tomorrow. I'm very happy to say it came off. It just disappeared. And it's possible that that's because we got at least 4 new people hired at work. And so the hours are being spread more thinly, maybe. I don't have a problem with that. Gives me more time to do fun stuff like this. It's Thursday morning. I was down here bright and early, and I've made 6 more squares for the quilt. Now, I think that means I only have 6 more to make. If I'm going to do a 36 square quilt, I only have enough interfacing left for 10 more blocks. So if I did want to extend the size of it, I'd have to go shopping. I should have just bought about 10 meters of the stuff. Never mind. So I'll just show you the ones I've made today. They are, of course, just as ugly as the rest of them. Now, there's a couple of tips with this interfacing that I should have followed before I started. I've been cutting my squares exactly 10 inches, which is actually perfect for the size of the interfacing because it's 20 inches wide. And so that's why, I'm pretty sure that's why I decided to make them 10-inch squares, because the interfacing is 20 inches wide, you don't get any waste, no little offcuts, and it works out great. The only downside to that is if you want to trim it to exactly 10 inches once you've got rid of all the little sticky out bits at the end of sewing, sometimes the interfacing has shrunk or skewed a bit from all of the diagonal sewing, and yeah, you get little bits sticking out on the sides that don't have the interfacing on the back. So I think my tip would be maybe cut it a little bigger than you want it, so that when you trim it back, it's all interfaced. And secondly, when you're sewing your diagonal strips on, start and finish outside of the interfacing, because when I've been trimming, I noticed at least on one of the blocks that when I was trimming, there was a little bit sticking out from the interfacing, and it wasn't sewn all the way to the edge. It'll probably be fine once they're all sewn together, but just saying, if you want to avoid the same issues as me. So yeah, and yeah, my wrist is really feeling it again today. So I'm going to take a break from the sewing for now. I just want to tell you about the book I read this week and my knitting, and then I'll get this video up because I know it's getting quite long. And hopefully by the next time I vlog, I'll have a backing fabric for the quilt, and I'll be able to get it finished. Shouldn't take long. So this is the book of the week. I can see the ring light is glaring on there a bit. It's called Two Women by Martina Cole. I haven't read a lot of Martina Cole, I don't think. The book cover implies that she's a very well-known author, highly decorated in the literary world, but what do I know? It is a large print book, which is why, probably one of the reasons it looks so damn thick. But I do love large print books, because these days, you know, my vision is not as good as it should be. So this, let me see, how can I explain this to you? So this is about a woman who was brought up in a rather unloving family, a rather abusive family in the East End of London. The father was violent and criminal, and the mother was unloving and unsupportive. The 2 daughters were miserable. There was a lot of verbal and physical abuse. She married young thinking she was getting away from her dad, and it turned out her husband was no better than her dad. And she had a lot of children. Unfortunately, she lost a lot of children as well, partly due to the abuse from her husband. It was a miserable life in a lot of ways. I mean, she did love her children, and she gave her children the best life she could. She basically did everything the opposite of what her mother did for her. And she brought up 4 very, very loving children. Unfortunately, things got too much for her, and yeah, let's say the husband didn't make it out alive from this book. So when book opens, she's in prison, and then it goes back to her life, and then it gets back to her being in prison at the end of the book. And yeah, I won't tell you any more than that, because obviously if you're interested, you'll want to read it for yourself, and you don't want any spoilers. That's probably enough. It's brutal. It's sad. It just makes you wonder how so many people can be so full of hate and so full of violence and so miserable in their life that they have to spread the misery to other people. Heartbreaking. I'm very excited about the knitting. I picked up my knitting from the couch last night, and I counted my stitches, and I realized I was only 1 round away from finishing the yoke. And which was really relieving, because, is that a word, relieving? I was very relieved about that, because the yoke was getting pretty big. Now, I know I made a fairly large size in this sweater, or I am making a large size in this sweater. It's going to have about 5 or maybe 6 inches of positive ease. It's going to be quite voluminous. I expect that. But the yoke was getting quite deep here, and I was like, oh my God, it's going to be too big. But I did my 1 more round of increases. I got to my 208 stitches, and I split for the sleeves and body. And I don't know if you've ever knitted a top-down sweater, but when you're knitting the yoke, whether it's a circular yoke or a raglan, you're increasing, and the rounds are getting longer and longer and longer, and you feel like you're climbing uphill. And then suddenly you split the stitches and you're working on the body, and of course that's way fewer stitches, and it feels like such a relief, like you're now plateauing, at least, maybe not going downhill, but at least plateauing. So let's see. Yes, it's starting to look like a sweater. My higher needles, I'm afraid they're metal and they're going to jangle. So there's my sleeve stitches there on a piece of waste yarn, and my sleeve stitches on that side on a piece of waste yarn, and I am working on the body. So it's just straight knitting now for about 10 inches, and that shouldn't take much time at all. I can't remember how many of these balls of yarn I've used so far, but I think I'm on track for not running out. If you haven't seen this before, it's Yarnsmiths Create Super Chunky in the colour Deep Ocean. And I'm making a solid coloured sweater with the plan of using 5 contrast colours in the same yarn to make a design on the front. So I'm sort of enjoying the process at the moment. The plain sweater is not that exciting, but it's very simple. It's good TV knitting, and I can put on YouTube or Netflix or BritBox and get on with it. I've been watching, what have I been watching on BritBox? It was called Death Valley. I do like crime programs, crime dramas. And so Death Valley was quite nice. It was set in Wales, and it was very entertaining and quite amusing. I do love the main character, the female detective. And then last night I started watching something called Department Q on Netflix, which was definitely a little bit more dark and serious. But I watched the first 2 episodes last night. I actually went to bed quite late, but I watched the first 2 episodes, and I quite enjoyed that one as well. Want to keep watching that. Not sure how many episodes there are. But yeah, I will persevere with that one. So there we go. You've had a bit of knitting, a bit of book reading, a bit of sewing, bit of everything. So I'm going to take a break from the sewing because my wrist, is definitely aching after that sewing and ironing session again. I will have some lunch and get some prep done for dinner. Oh, did I tell you earlier in the video that I had made chocolate chip cookies? I did, didn't I? Oh, wow, they were good. The amount of batter I made, I always double recipes when it comes to cookies. There's 5 of us in the house, for heaven's sake. I made those amazing chocolate chip cookies, and I cannot remember what the name of the vlog is, but let me just write this down. Because I will link to the cookie recipe under the video, because it was amazing. I'm not sure if it was originally written for gluten-free flour, because that's what I had written in my homemade recipe book years ago. But I just used whole wheat flour. I used coconut sugar. They came out beautifully dark brown because of the coconut sugar. I used some small semi-sweet chocolate chips from Bulk Barn, which were really nice, much nicer than the ones I bought from there last time, which were bigger. These ones were much more chocolatey. And so from the double amount of batter, I made 11 quite large cookies. I think I scooped it out with a 1/3 cup measure, so they were pretty big. Next time I would use a 1/4 cup. And so we each had 2, and we put ice cream on one, slapped them together and ate them, and it was like a whole handful of cookie and ice cream. It was amazing. And it didn't felt too, what's the word I'm looking for? It didn't feel guilty, because I don't feel guilty about enjoying food, but it didn't feel too bad because we had started the meal with a salad, a Vietnamese, what was it called? A Vietnamese noodle salad. And it had the rice vermicelli noodles and some fried tofu and a whole bunch of vegetables in it. It had snap peas, lettuce, red pepper, grated carrot, something else as well, and a really yummy gingery spicy dressing. So it was a good dinner again. So often I'll just make the same old dinner over and over again, or the same old recipes over and over again. And that's why it's important to go to the library and bring some new books home and start introducing a few extras into the plan, and find new favorites, because otherwise it just gets boring, doesn't it? It's nice to try out new recipes, even though I don't always follow them 100%. In fact, I don't think I ever follow them 100%. I usually put my own spin on it, but sometimes they come out so amazing you want to keep making them, which is brilliant. Anyway, I think I've yacked on long enough. So I think we'll finish here. Thanks so much for getting to the end with me. I appreciate you being here, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.